I hope that's answered that. That's all the questions I've got, so I'm going to move on to you guys buzz off, and I'm going to have debate, and Councillor Watson's first cab off the rank.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess first up, I'd acknowledge the two groups that have put together two very professional and costly presentations. I hope they think it was worthwhile after listening to the last hour or so. And I say that because Councillor Williamson does have a point. Auckland Council's made it clear it won't provide any money. It's had no part in the plans being drawn up, plays no part in the operation of the facility, and in the resolutions has made it very clear that it will have no part in the future funding. So I guess the word decision, I mean, there's been a lot of hype this last while, but like the build up to the 2011 Rugby World Cup. I guess it's been good for stories and good for anticipation. Don't know if the video screen's down there in Aotea Square waiting to see what the decision is that comes out, but decision's a bit of a stretch really, because the council is firmly in the seat of a spectator role here, very much a spectator up in the stand. Maybe if they're an Auckland councillor they'll be in the corporate box, but they're certainly on the sideline and not down on the field playing. You know, we have no real effective role in this, more akin to our local boards and their advocacy roles. And if you look at the state of or the history of Eden Park, that's pretty much the way it's been for the last 125 years. Aside from that 9.8 million in 2019, they've largely had to do everything themselves. They're quite used to it. They got landed with their 40 million debt when the legacy councils reneged. They've paid 15 million in interest on that, so I think they're pretty much used to going it alone, and incidentally that'd work out about 78k a year in today's dollars, so just about the cost of a kid's playground. So I think we've done not too bad out of Eden Park, and maybe we'll continue to do so today if this resolution passes. And to be honest, when you do look at the council suite of stadiums, and you know, as I've said earlier, you know, I'm very proud of our stadiums, but if you look at what could have happened, that's maybe just as well that they are going it alone. Half the stadium at North Harbour demolished in order to accommodate a baseball franchise that went bust. A very wildly vacillating stadium strategy that's seen pretty serious attempts to turn Western Springs into a international cricket oval for one test match, a demolition of the eastern stand at Mount Smart to turn that into a speedway track. The Warriors moved to their spiritual homeland of the North Shore. A mayor in the last term who was wanting to demolish Eden Park. I don't know where that would have left us today. A single operator model that after 3 years hasn't had any resolution. The only kind of consistent thread there I'd see is the word demolition. But all that aside, and on a positive note, because I like to introduce a bit of positivity to proceedings here, if you do look at this stage one, it has got a lot of good things with it. It's not 100 million, Mr. Mayor, it's 110 million for that, and for 110 million, if that's to be correct, what do we get? We get a fully compliant diameter cricket ground, Councillor Darby. The boundaries of international from the ICC is that they have to be no less than 59 metres from the centre of the pitch. There's 64. We have a rugby field that's 14 metres in, so we have a perfect rectangular stadium and conceivably a boutique stadium if new technology is employed there. In terms of the numbers that go through, 40,000 for cricket, 50,000 for rugby, 60,000 for multi-function events. So if Eden Park can get all those things for 110 million, then the good people of Auckland will have done very well out of it indeed. So I guess, you know, I'll be supporting the recommendations. I think they're reasonably pragmatic. As I said, I'm certainly not exaggerating the council's role and all that, because it's pretty minimal, but it has at least made, some sort of stake in the ground. And I think given all the financial constraints and the endless series of debates, there's a practical element here that hopefully signals that something can maybe come out of this. Thank you.
Nice speech, thank you. Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, look, thanks. I've said my thanks before, but just to say again how much of an honour it's been to really lead this work. I think it's actually been really important work, and I think council is expected to provide a position on something that could be a multi-billion-dollar, multi-generational investment, whichever way we go. So, look, I kind of disagree with a couple of my colleagues on that one. So I've spent probably about 2 years on this issue. Through it all, I've received messages from pretty much everyone I've ever met in my life, old school friends, you name it, giving me their definitive solution, which is the only right one, by the way, and it's very obvious, and every solution I've received is all different. But I've loved the discussion, I've loved the input that I get, and it's just a small snapshot of the decades of debate that stadiums have been for our city, across the barbecues of Auckland, across the kitchen tables. It's all anyone ever talks about, and I'm hoping that today we can kind of settle that one. Opinions will always be strong and divided on this issue, and so it's up to us to show leadership and put a stake in the ground. I think that's what most Aucklanders actually want from their representatives, even if they agree or disagree with where we land. Look, it's true that the report has shown both bids have their issues. Eden Park to me is more easily able to become viable, and so that's why I'll be leaning towards that today. As the report states, it's feasible in most respects with a high degree of confidence, but it struggles at this time in terms of finding the funding for their plans. Now, a vote today actually gives certainty to the market and to the government that they can partner with confidence, that we back them, and that they can raise those funds from people that might otherwise be a little bit nervous about it. So, look, I'd contend that this should not prevent us from picking a lane, and actually it's a reason for us to pick a lane on this one. It's ticking off something that has been on our civic to-do list for generations, perhaps. It's long overdue. It's important stuff. So, to me, as I said, the preferred option is Eden Park 2.1. Now, you'll note we've specified a staged approach, and I think we should represent that view to the government as well, and I'm open to any way to do that, because look, it's staged in a way so the project is manageable, you can chunk it out so that the group can seek support and funding to do those identifiable steps along the way and give people hope, give Aucklanders hope that things are going to happen. There'll be those that disagree with that call, and I do understand and acknowledge your view, because both bids are very worthy, and they show contrasting visions for our city, both backed by strong teams with great expertise. It's been an absolute pleasure to be working with them in the group. Both options are visionary in their own ways, and what's most important here is through all of this, we want to be a major player as a city in the Asia Pacific region for events and for cultural events, sporting events, you name it, celebrations. We're not competing with Wellington. We're not competing with Palmerston North. We're competing across the region for the biggest and best events that our city will love and enjoy for generations. And this is the kind of investment that's required to do that. We've been clear through the process that ratepayers' money is not on the table. And that's an expectation for Aucklanders, and this vote actually reaffirms that as well. Aucklanders have no appetite to put their hands directly in their pockets when the challenges of a growing city remain unfunded, when the cost of living crisis makes council services more important than ever for the limited funding that we have. However, this has been an extremely useful exercise. As I've kind of alluded to, the vote signals to the market that council is backing one preferred option. And this will lend weight to that bid when they're looking for money and looking for support. And conversely, it says that we will not be supporting a different option. And that's just as important. Staff have been clear on that too. Finally, in conclusion, councillors, it's time for us, finally, to put this stadium debate to bed. Tonight, hopefully, this passes. We walk out of this town hall with one preferred option and more certainty for Aucklanders. Let's get behind it, let's back it. I believe it's a landmark day for Auckland's entertainment. I believe it is a great day for our city, and I'm so proud to be seconding this vote. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, very good indeed. Beat that, Councillor Walker.
I'll agree with a lot of that. I think base one is we have to accept that New Zealand needs a major stadium, and so does Auckland, and frankly, Auckland is the best place for it. And we've been bludging off Eden Park because it is that stadium. So this city, put council to one side, this city needs a significant stadium of that stature. It has such a stadium in Eden Park. And Eden Park is not going away. Certainly that's my understanding. Whether we like it or not, this council, through a previous mayor, Phil Goff, blew $1 million looking at downtown stadium locations. And this council entered the fray about stadiums and where those stadiums would go. So, as Councillor Henderson has said, we have to conclude that because we've lifted this expectation. We have unsolicited bids. A number of those bids are for Auckland Council locations. So we had a bid for Wynyard Point. We considered Victoria Park, heaven forbid. We considered a sunken stadium off Bledisloe, off the port that we own. And we actually considered other locations. So we have an interest in putting this to bed because the locations that people are coming up with, 9 times out of 10, are Auckland Council properties. So this gives us an opportunity to do that. The investment strategy that we just covered off was all about determining investments around stadiums or venues against a background of what is best for Auckland. If Eden Park warrants some money, and it's a better business case than Western Springs, which runs at a loss, Mount Smart, which runs at a significant loss, and North Harbour Stadium, and Eden Park actually washes its face right now. I think in 2023 it had a $12 million profit. Then why would we not invest in a winner? Why would we not do that? Back a winner. So frankly, it's a no-brainer here. Eden Park needs to go to the government. It's seeking endorsement from councils in exactly the same way we had that circumstance in the build-up to the Rugby World Cup, where councils chipped in, should have been grants, but with the exception of the Auckland Regional Council, they converted them to loans, and the government chipped in money. And increasingly those decisions are around events. And if Eden Park has got a good case for events that bring GDP, bring income to New Zealand, and bring income to Auckland, then there's a business case for that, and that's what they'll be working up. As far as the other bid is concerned, I've looked at it, and frankly, it just doesn't stack up. The $1 billion cost is nowhere even remotely near reality, and that is without the infrastructure and the precinct costs and the like that have been identified in the most recent studies in Brisbane. It doesn't come within a bull's roar of reality, and from a risk perspective, it is highly risky for us to even entertain something like that. And that bid requires the cannibalisation of Mount Smart and Eden Park, and that's not going to happen. So if we deal with reality, we have something on the table, it needs to proceed, we should get behind it, it stacks up. Whether or not it requires money from us or not, that's for a future day. So we should be backing this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much for that. Alf Filipina and then Mike Lee.
Thank you, Chair. There's a Māori whakatauku which says kamua kamuri. Basically what it is that we acknowledge the past for us to allow to move forward, right? And that's what we're doing here now. We've acknowledged the past. We've had previous councils look at options around stadia. We now have the opportunity, as Councillor Henderson said, to make a statement and to end up saying, hey, we wish to endorse at least a proposal that from what we've seen It's not going to cost us anything. You know, I mean, we mentioned Western Springs before, we've mentioned the Speedway, we've mentioned Tātaki Auckland Unlimited, but for us, this decision is about endorsing in principle for us to move to stage one. But it's for us to acknowledge the stage one, to endorse it, but also hopefully to push the letter that I mentioned earlier to assist Eden Park when they have their negotiation with the government around that 110 million. For me, I think my history with Eden Park goes back to the 90s when we played a game against Auckland Central Police and Manukau Police paid, and that was the first time I accidentally head-eyed another police officer, only because I thought that's what you do on Eden Park, because that's what we did on Carlo Park. That's my history, you know, and I love playing there, but I think we're at a stage now, as Councillor Henderson said, is to endorse this in principle. Let's assist as much as we can the advocacy that Eden Park are going to make in regards to their bid. So I look forward, one, to moving forward with this, but number two is to support these recommendations. Kia ora.
Councillor Lee?
Yes, it's often said that in the Middle Ages, theologians debated in earnest and at length how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. I don't know if that's true or even fair to those medieval theologians, to be honest with you. But one thing is for sure, here in modern day Auckland, we regularly debate the merits of different stadia, and particularly the main debate between Eden Park and the waterfront contender, the phantom contender. I have to say that I've heard Councillor Henderson's passionate speech about the merits of Eden Park. Eden Park does exist, it functions, it's perfectly adequate for what it is. It does actually exist, and that's a key part of the debate, but it doesn't make the debate go away. What I'm concerned about is, I think that the officer's original recommendations were completely appropriate. What I'm concerned about is if you excuse the pun, talking a big game about Eden Park, how vital it is for future generations, and all the rest of it. Spending a whole bunch of money on Eden Park is vital for future generations and all the rest of it, which I don't actually agree with. I'm not going to go into my own personal history in regards to Eden Park, but I was and am a supporter of Eden Park. That doesn't mean to say that Eden Park Trust and the Trust Board have entitlement or expectations for endless amounts of public money. So the danger of talking up Eden Park but saying the Crown, in other words, Wellington, Parliament, the government should pay for it all, despite all the wonderful words we lavish on it, is going to leave us open for criticism. Christchurch parliamentarians, Cantabrians, are not going to be particularly impressed with how wonderful Auckland councillors think of Eden Park, how great Eden Park is, but not willing to spend a cent on it. The thing is, the real danger is here is that we have discussed this for almost 3 hours, and really, in effect, we're coming up with a big, fat zero. And that really raises questions about how serious these sorts of debates really are. If we really thought it was vital for future generations, etc., 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 or it's not working properly, or it's the reason why the Blues aren't playing very well, then we should front up with real money rather than saying we love it, but we're not going to pay a cent for it. That's the problem. The danger here today for us is the governing body of Auckland Council has discussed a stadium debate for about 3 hours and come up with a big fat zero. Thank you.
Well, that's impressive. So we've got a lot of impassioned stuff. I think we're going to go and vote on it in a minute. Despite the fact that I'm probably the only one here who's played a Coldplay number in a band, I've never actually accepted concert tickets. I just want to point that out. We've got some things in front of us. Least unviable one. As we say, at this stage, there's no extra money. We've got a late entry into the debate with Councillor Darby, but
Thank you.
we'll go to it in a minute. But just to compare with what you had, Councillor Henderson, I had an impassioned advice this week that it should be turned into a hospital at Eden Park, but I managed to fend that off. Councillor Darby, please be the last one.
Thanks, Mayor. Good to hear you mention Coldplay. Great band. I did go and see that as a guest of Eden Park. I was not drinking the cold beers in the box, but I sure as hell enjoyed the music. I was also on the Stadium's Working Party chaired by Councillor Henderson. Interesting to note, we got to that Stadium's Working Party and we actually didn't quite know that the terms of reference had been defined a little bit differently to what we're expecting. We did not know that we're convening to discuss the main stadium at that time. It was a rather odd beginning and it's an odd end. So it's been an odd journey all the way, I think, over those years. One of the things that I have keen memory of is when the different consortia came in, and one did impress me above the others, and I'm giving you my view of what I witnessed at that panel, and that was the group that came in from New York, Los Angeles, London, and Australia, and here in Aotearoa, representing the consortium known as Te Tongaroa. It was impressive. I probably looked at this table and I was a little bit surprised at who was there. And I did a bit of Googling and I thought there's probably around about $150,000 of fees just for that presentation sitting opposite me. People from Goldman Sachs and the architects out of New York, Lang's Construction out of London, I think it was. And I thought somebody is taking this very seriously. Somebody is putting some serious money into this, and they are playing a very long game. I do not believe you will see the last of the consortium Te Tongaroa. They are not going anywhere, and neither are Ngāti Whātua on this, I don't believe. Though I don't have any evidence to confirm that. That is just how I see it. What I have seen is this, though. I did see a funding model presented by that consortium, that international consortium. I didn't see a funding model presented from Eden Park. I have many questions about Eden Park. I still have questions about the Te Tongaroa consortium. My preference would have been to not make a quasi-decision today, but to actually make a robust, enduring decision when we had all the information, and as the officers outlined, that would be to go to the next stage, which is allow the parties to build up their business case. We're now asking one of them to do that, but only on stage one. There are many unanswered questions. The Te Tongaroa consortium provided a funding and financing model that we have questions about. The other one didn't provide at all. But ultimately, at the end of that stage, and this is one of the things that is fundamentally missing at this stage, is we're making a decision in the absence of the input of Aucklanders on something so city-shaping. Not a mention has been made of the place that Aucklanders have in maybe knowing about these proposals in any way, or eliciting their feedback on these proposals. Such a big decision, if it was a decision, surely that should encompass the views of Aucklanders, and it's not. And I think that is a complete miss on this council's part. My preference would have been go to the business case and then socialise the proposals and the business case with Aucklanders, draw out their views. But that takes me down to my personal views now, and I'll explain those. Eden Park does not face the future. It reflects on the past, and a grand facility it is, and I take my hat off to particularly Nick Sauntner, who would be a great chief executive at Te Tongaroa. And he has resuscitated Eden Park, but it's still on life support. I mean, the number of times he must have dash off downstairs for the defib, it must be numerous times to get that place going. All the heritage crowing in Auckland will not save Eden Park. Its use-by date is absolutely up. It's done its dash. It's time to be really blunt about Eden Park, and I don't think we are. It's stuck in suburban remoteness, surrounded by a moat of villas. And I'm using the word moat not as a derogatory term for the villas, but that's what surrounds it. It's cocooned by villas, and that comes with a lot of constraints in terms of its operation. It's a substandard international cricket boundary, according to the information I've got. It has limited hospitality offer. The list goes on. A downtown East Stadium, on the other hand, that's a city-shaping precinct development. It's not a building, it's a precinct development. And that is about bringing life to those deadlands on the east side of our city, just as we did to the west side in the Wynyard Quarter starting 20 years back. It'll be a long game. It ties neatly into the Central Wharves master planning. It's hyper-connected to public transport, and it's just a stroll to all the hospitality offer and all the visitor accommodation to the cruise ships, etc. It's an innovative design. It truly is, by some top architects out of New York. And it has a 100-year outlook, not a 10 or 20-year outlook. It's a big idea for Auckland, and that's what challenges us. The big ideas really challenge this council. But I don't think it challenges Aucklanders. It's just challenging this council, and that's where there's another disconnect. We've got a real stark choice here. We kick it for touch, stick with the familiar, reminisce, and we buy another $250 million as they did in 2011 to pretty up Eden Park. And it'll last 10 or 15 years and we'll be back to it. It's pretty much the City Old Boys, just that classic City Old Boys response. And as I term it, a brave new adventure on something like Te Tongaroa is entirely missing here in this discussion. Today we've really chosen duct tape over a brave new adventure, as I would call it. And I've heard comment that the stadium debate now is concluded. It's not concluded. We didn't make a decision. A decision was not made today. It was another half-baked pseudo decision, if at all called a decision.
Well, that sums it up pretty well. It is what we do, it is what it is, and I'm going to put it to the vote.
By division, please.
Okay. Did somebody want to?
Yes, division. Councillor Fletcher called division.
Okay, right. I thought I heard the word there.
Right. Councillor Baker.
For.
Councillor Bartley.
Can I come back?
No.
No.
Councillor Dalton.
Or
Councillor Darby.
No, I'll support F, I think it is, acknowledging the parties.
Councillor Ferry.
4.
Councillor Filipina.
5.
Councillor Fletcher.
Positively, yes.
Councillor Foley.
4.
Councillor Henderson.
Yes.
Councillor Hills.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, that's easy for you to say.
Sorry, Councillor Hills, can you clarify?
Oh, sorry, I said, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Abstain.
Councillor Leone.
4.
Councillor Newman.
4.
Councillor Sayers.
For.
Deputy Mayor Simpson. Councillor Stewart.
For.
Councillor Walker.
Yes.
Councillor Watson. Yes. Councillor Williamson.
Sorry, what was the question again? No, yes, no, it's a yes.
Thank you. Mayor Brown.
Yes.
Okay, so that's carried 17 votes to 2 with 1 abstention.
Righto, we haven't heard the end of that, but we've got on to items 15 and 16, which I hope to be able to pass together. Thank you. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Walker in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, carried. Okay, and now the next one is we're going to move into confidential for the Mangawhau and Karanga Happy acquisition and disposable. This is the thing that I'm most interested in on the day, but unfortunately the press can't hear me. Bugger that. So we're moving in, and seconded by somebody or other, Williamson, into secrecy. I'd like to thank all those people who've sat through that this afternoon. And if you are asleep, you can wake up and go now. If you're still awake, well, good on you.